her story is really the story of so many other children who battle cancer. And that little girl there is a survivor who has a lemonade stand, and her mom took that picture at her lemonade stand. And the little boy, showing his muscle, sadly passed away a few years ago. And his family continues to support in his memory to make sure other kids have the chance that he didn't have. So we're going to be on this slide for a while. I want to share with you my daughter's story. So I know you're familiar with it on some level. Probably going to give you a little more detail than you've heard before. But essentially, we were thrown into the world of childhood cancer when she was just 2 days shy of her first birthday. At the time, I actually owned my own business. It was a coffee place at the University of Connecticut, where my husband and I had graduated from a couple of years before. And it was the first, believe it or not, it was 1994 when we opened. It was the first gourmet coffee, cappuccino, espresso place, pre-Starbucks, I guess, on the East Coast, on campus. And it was doing extremely well. We also had a 2-year-old son at the time, Patrick. So, young entrepreneurs planning an expansion that week to open up another shop in another location. And here we were told that our daughter had cancer. She needed emergency surgery, and that we would probably be heading into at least 1.5 years of treatment. Of course, we had no idea. Had you told me that it would be 7.5 years of treatment, I don't know what I would have done, but I suppose I would have just dealt with it, because that's what you have to do. So very quickly we learned that she, in fact, did have cancer. After her surgery, they confirmed that. And the second part of the story that many people don't know is that during her surgery, she came out of that surgery. It was about 15-hour surgery at 1 a.m. on her first birthday. It just turned into her first birthday. And they told us the surgery was a success, but they couldn't remove everything because it was too close to her spine. But that during the surgery, her blood supply was compromised and she was paralyzed from the chest down. So we sat there in the intensive care unit with her, just devastated. The world literally felt like it was spinning out of control. And I remember just going off into a room by myself and thinking, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't go back out there. But fortunately, inspiration comes to you in a lot of different ways. And I remembered seeing a family. I used to volunteer at a telethon for pediatric cancer, coincidentally. And just that year before, I had seen a family come who was with their daughter who was in treatment. And I remember thinking, wow, I admire them. I admire their strength. I admire them that they're here sharing their story. And it occurred to me in that moment that I could be that kind of person, or I could be the kind of person who, curls up and just refuses to deal with it. Which honestly, as we know, is not really an option when you have kids, because they have expectations of you and you need to take care of them. So to kind of speed the story up a little bit, Alex did head into years of treatment and all of the known chemotherapies, radiation therapy. She had 6 major surgeries to remove tumors that were popping up. In that first few years of treatment, we were pretty hopeful that she would be cured. And at the same time, we were pretty hopeful that she would walk again, because despite what they said, about 2 weeks after she got out of the hospital, she started moving her legs when we asked her to. Not really moving them, but you could see flickers of muscle. So she worked for the rest of her life, but really those first few years especially, to learn how to walk. And she went from not being able to stand, to having full leg braces in a walker, to having half leg braces in a walker, then having ankle braces in a walker, to the point where she eventually walked in her own way, as we would say, in the Alex way. She had touch points around the room, but she could get around the room. She never had sensation in her legs, so they were amazed that she could manage walking without being able to feel her legs at all, especially with all the weakness she had. So those few years go by, and she's actually getting stronger, it seems, but her cancer is also getting stronger. And by the end of those first few years of treatment, we lived in Hartford, Connecticut at the time. We had traveled to Boston, we had traveled to New York to get second and third opinions. And they gave us a lot of different opinions about different treatments that could be tried. They never quite exactly agreed until now. And this was she was 2 months shy of her 4th birthday. We also had another boy at this point who was a baby. And they told us that all 3 said there's nothing more to be done. you need to take her home. You need to let her spend some time away from the hospital and enjoy the rest of the days you have with her. And here she was, the reason I talk about her learning how to walk was she'd actually just literally learned how to walk by herself. And she was a happy kid. She was playing with her brothers. Her biggest problem was that her cancer was causing her pain. And on a good day, she was as happy as anybody. We really felt like she had a lot of fight left in her and that her quality of life was still good despite everything. So we persisted and we ended up contacting a bunch of different hospitals, and we found Philadelphia, who said, we can't tell you we're gonna cure her if you come here, but we can give her more time. We can try some things we haven't tried, some experimental treatments, and we think it can be quality time. So that's what we wanted. That's all we wanted to hear. And in fact, they said to us, I said, people, I feel bad, like, should I be giving up? Is it wrong to keep treating her? And the doctor in Philadelphia said, first of all, no, we wouldn't be having this conversation if I thought it was wrong to keep treating her. And he said, I think you'll know when it's time. And she's not up for any more treatment. So we ended up coming to Philadelphia, and that first trip was really critical, which is why I like to tell the backstory, because, remind you that everything had basically failed her. And despite everything she had been through, her cancer was now spreading and it was growing faster. It was in her bones. And it was much more serious. She was on pain medicine around the clock. We traveled down to Philadelphia right after Thanksgiving, as a matter of fact, and it was an experience drive to Philadelphia from Connecticut. I don't recommend it on the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and we've never done it again. It was a terrible ride. In fact, she was so uncomfortable. We let her get out of her car seat, which I would never normally do as a parent, but I just couldn't bear to see how uncomfortable she was sitting in the car seat. We arrived in Philadelphia, and by this point, I'm thinking, why are we here? This is wrong. They were right. We should just let her enjoy the time she has. She went into the hospital. We told her this was a brand new treatment because it's very traumatizing. Here was another new hospital with all new people that she needed to deal with. And it's very scary. They like their familiar nurses and doctors. We said these are brand new treatments, things they haven't tried before. They do research there. I got her really excited about it. Well, she came out of this treatment. She was 3 days in isolation because she essentially was radioactive. She was only the third patient to receive it at the time, and it was one of the first targeted therapies, and it's now a very common therapy for the type of cancer she had. But she came out 3 days later. Here she was not even 4, and I thought she would be a wreck, all smiles. And she said, that treatment worked, Mommy. I feel better. So we knew that we came home so full of hope, and knowing that we had done the right thing. And of course, they confirmed that it had in fact worked and reduced her tumor burden, as they call it, her cancer, by about 2/3. Nothing had done that. It literally happened in 4 days. So it set us on the road for what would become, including her lemonade stand, because 2 things happened after that. We really much more thoughtfully and aggressively pursued treatments that Philadelphia and working with Connecticut thought could help her and could allow her to spend time away from the hospital. So things that could be given outpatient so she wouldn't have to stay over. And it was also around that time that she started talking about having a lemonade stand. Now, mind you, this was January now, by the time she mentions her lemonade stand. It's cold here, it's cold in Connecticut in January. And she was still getting treated. I mean, she was not a well child, but she was feeling a lot better. So she started talking about having this lemonade stand, and I said, sure, all the things you tell your kids when you're busy and you don't necessarily want to do exactly what they want to do at that moment. So I said, when it gets warmer, when you're feeling better. Months went by, and she would ask me every few weeks. Finally, in June of 2000, so she's 4.5, she asked me one day. I remember we were in the kitchen. I think we were making brownies. We both love brownies. And she said, we still haven't had my lemonade stand, and now it's getting hot out, because the excuse was that it was too cold. And I said, what could you possibly want to buy? What could you need so badly that you need to have this lemonade stand? And she said, I'm not keeping the money, I'm giving it to my doctor so they can help kids the way they helped me. And I had that same reaction. I thought I was proud of her. And it was a very new idea. Like, I had never heard of a lemonade stand for charity back then. This was, like I said, in 2000, it was quite a long time ago now. But I mostly, honestly thought it was adorable, right? You have, a lot of you probably probably have small children, I've had small children, they come up with these ideas that you think are so cute, you know, like you look at your spouse or the grandparent or the older sibling and kind of, you know, like humor the 4-year-old who thinks they're gonna win American Idol or, you know, whatever the big dreams are that they have. I thought it was adorable, and in fact, I called my sister and said, you have to come to this lemonade stand, it'll be fun, she had 4 kids, bring your kids, and as we're hanging up, I said, oh, and by the way, sort of like, get this, Alex is gonna donate the money to the hospital to cure cancer, thinking she would kind of get my sense of humor, that this was very funny to me, that Alex was gonna cure cancer with a lemonade stand. And she said, oh my goodness, that's amazing. Do you mind if I call the newspaper? And I said, I don't mind, but I'm sure they won't care. Like, this is a 4-year-old lemonade stand. And she said, oh, they'll care. They will definitely care. And it turns out she was right. And she does remind me of that quite often. But she called the newspaper and they ran a little story about Alex. And before we even opened that day, there were people on the front lawn lining up to get some of her lemonade. I feel like she knew because she got dressed the night before. She had to get like a new lemonade outfit. And she went to bed in her clothes the night before because she said, I want to be up and ready early. She was up at 5:30 in the morning, ready to go. We said we were going to open at 11 or noon or something. I feel like she knew something special was about to happen. So she was busy all day. People came. It was incredibly life-changing. Both to feel the support as a family living with cancer, but also to see Alex and see what this meant to her. You know, here I was sort of poking fun of her, like this is adorable. At the end of the day, she said to me, that was the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I realized then that this was important. You know, this is not a joke and something cute. She was serious about making a difference for other kids. So, much longer story shorter, we ended up moving here to Philadelphia. It was a huge challenge for our family to be living in Connecticut. I should mention we sold the business after she was in treatment for a little while. We just couldn't sustain it because I really couldn't work outside the home other than taking care of her and the other kids. And we moved here to Philadelphia because our family, even though we had a huge support network up there, we needed to be together as a family. We needed to be there for each other, especially with our other children. And we moved here to Philly, and of course Alex says, I'm gonna have my lemonade stand. I was so worried that this was not going to be a success. Now that she had this great success, and she said it was the best thing that ever happened to her, I thought, oh boy, she's gonna be disappointed. Well, she ended up, this is a little known fact, her second stand, first stand was in Connecticut, her second stand was here in our front yard in Ringwood. But I put her off so long because we had just moved and I wanted the kids to start school, thinking I could at least kind of get into the school community and have the school show up. She did in late October, and it was like a cold October day. Mittens, hat. She raised $700, which I thought was amazing. And at the end of the day, she did not say that was the best thing that ever happened to her. She said, it's your fault because it's too cold. And I told you, nobody wants lemonade when it's cold out. So I should mention that after we moved here, she started on a new experimental treatment literally the day after we moved here. And this treatment, which is no longer considered experimental, gave her two of the best years of her life. It reduced her cancer to almost nothing. And in this time, she was really able to grow her vision and grow her dreams for what would become Alex's lemonade stand. So by the next year, she's feeling pretty good, and she says she's gonna have a lemonade stand. And it's gonna be in the spring, before it gets too cold. So we set out with her, we set up the stand. I started telling everybody, I didn't know that many people still, but I ran into like other parents had the kids like karate classes, and the woman who worked at Dunkin' Donuts, like anybody I remotely knew to come to this stand. Well, one of the moms called the Philadelphia Inquirer, and they ran a story about Alex and her lemonade stand. And we were so unprepared. You cannot believe. I mean, the week leading up to the stand after that article ran, she started getting donations in the mail because they put the address and people could come from all over Philadelphia and then beyond Philadelphia. And this was pre-social media, so it was really like print and traditional news media. And on that day, it didn't stop. All day long, people came. She ended up raising about $15,000 in the front yard. And she was happy. She was very happy with that. So life went on. She was getting treated, as I mentioned. Things were going really well for her treatment-wise. She was getting stronger and being able to walk stronger and even getting to go to school a little bit. And the next year came around, and sure enough, Alex is going to have her lemonade stand. Well, this year, a couple of incredible things happened. And I want to mention one is it poured rain, and that was not what was incredible. It was one of those days where, literally did not stop. No one wants to go outside. She raised $18,000 in our program. People came and stayed, and they stood there with umbrellas. We have pictures of it. Just stayed there all day. And the national news showed up, which we had no idea they were coming until we woke up in the morning. They were parked outside. And that really was a huge turning point, because we saw what this meant to other people as well. Those people who came and stayed there all day long just to be a part of it. But as the story expanded and reached people nationally, she started getting letters really from all over the country and all over the world. But the most incredible thing was she got letters from other kids, which I don't even think she expected that. And it said things like, my grandfather told me what you did, and I have a lemonade stand, but I want you to have the money to find a cure instead. And that really impressed her. And I remember one of the first ones we received, sharing it with her. She had the most incredible smile on her face. And I said, what do you think? She said, that's pretty cool. But I think it was around that time that she developed this vision. And her vision was two-part. So it was shortly after that. Now the money is coming in. She's getting asked to do guest lemonade stands at different events. And the news is covering her story in between the stands. So it's growing and growing, and we could feel it growing. We had set up a website and everything. But she ended up saying to me one day, we would get mail at our house, and we had set up a fund so the money could be tax deductible and go through another foundation. And she said, what are we doing with all this money? So I said, Alex, you know what we're doing with it? I thought, does she think we're keeping this? And I said, we're giving it to the hospital. She said, no, well, what are they doing with it? And I said, well, they're using it to research neuroblastoma. That was her cancer, thinking this would be good news for her. And she started shaking her head. And I said, what's the matter? She said, that is so selfish. And even then, I'm embarrassed to say it now, I was about to say, I don't care. Because in my mind, there was a chance that we were going to be able to cure her. We were going to find something that would cure her. And just as I opened my mouth to say something, she said, all kids want their cancer to go away. We should be giving money to all different hospitals for all kinds of cancers for kids. And I just remember that feeling. I had this lump in my throat, and I just started crying because I realized that this was so much bigger than her. It was so much bigger than curing her. And in many ways, I don't think for her it was ever about curing her. As I'm going to share with you as we learn a little bit later in her life. So that was a critical moment because it set the path for the vision of what became the foundation, but it also really showed us, the generosity and the willingness of other people to do something and set up stands and get involved. So that vision really came from Alex, but she really articulated it best in 2004. As I mentioned, she started her stand in 2000. So by 2004, she was turning 8. She had some great years, but nothing was working. And she really believed in getting treated. She really believed in participating, insisted on getting treated, as a matter of fact. And but it had spread to her lungs and her liver. And she was very, very, very sick. We weren't even mentioning the lemonade stand, not to mention I had another baby boy in this time. So life was very busy. And she gets on the phone with a reporter and says, well, last year I raised over $100,000. So this year I'm going to raise $1 million. And I was inspired, but in the state of mind that I was in, I was so concerned because I thought, she's not going to reach that goal, and she's going to be disappointed in something that she should never be disappointed in. She had already done enough. And when she hung up, I said, Alex, how are you going to raise $1 million? And she said, if everyone has lemonade stands, I think we can do it. So she was able to articulate that and turn it into a plan or a vision, which was on the day that she had her last stand, she didn't call it that, but that's what it was, there would be stands happening all over the country. And together we could raise $1 million, and who can argue with that? right? A very succinct business plan. So that one goal, that she wanted to raise $1 million, became a call to action. Honestly, we don't even know how, because we were pretty entrenched in our own lives and caring for our family and caring for Alex, and she was very, very sick. But she started getting calls for interviews. So amazingly, what happened was people heard what she said. She was interviewed by Oprah, the Today Show, it was in hundreds of newspapers, and they would come to our website, they would call our house, and they would say, we're gonna do a lemonade stand, all in an effort to help her reach her goal. So on the same day she had her last stand in 2004, there were stands all over the country. We still have that event. It's an amazing event to get involved with your businesses or your kids. It's called Lemonade Days. And we've expanded it quite a bit to a week where people just set up wherever they want and they raise anything they can to help cure this disease. So she was able to reach her goal, amazingly. She held on till the middle of July, and we were able to tell her she was gonna reach her goal, and she died 10 days later. And at the time, I thought, I am so grateful that she saw her goal met. But obviously, looking back on it, at some point I realized this is what she was hanging on for. This is what she needed to see happen. And everything she had done in her life really set it up to continue. So after she passed, people were still donating and saying they were gonna have stands. So we decided, my husband and I decided we had an opportunity. It was not an easy decision at the time because of the state of mind we were in, and Alex was a lemonade stand. But we kept hearing from parents whose kids were still fighting, saying, you have an opportunity. I'm so grateful to Alex. We have an opportunity to cure this disease together. So I could hear Alex saying, that is so selfish, right? Me thinking it's gonna be too hard. You know, my other kids need me more now. I don't know how to run a charity, you know, all the things you can tell yourself. So we decided to start Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation in early 2005. We actually received our ruling within her 9th birthday, which was pretty coincidental and amazing. And today, I'm really proud to say, we are actually one of the largest funders of pediatric cancer research in the United States. I think we're up to about 130 million now, every day climbing, but it's not because we knew the magic answer, but it's really because, you know, our founder had a strong vision that we were able to move forward on and able to motivate so many people, literally one cup at a time, to get involved. But none of that is very important if we're not making a difference. And I can't even describe to you how humbling it is, but how tremendously proud we are of the fact that Alex had this vision bigger than her disease, but also gave us a real inspiration to move this work forward, because we've now been able to fund actually hot off the presses 650 research projects at more than 120 institutions in the US and Canada, all looking at better ways to treat children, finding new cures, especially for hard to cure children. And I like to show you this slide because each of these 4 children were at a place like Alex was, and their parents were just like us, being told there's nothing more to be done, we cannot cure your child. And each of them was able to enroll in a clinical trial that was made possible by Alex's Lemonade Stand research and leading right up to it. And every single one of them is now a multi-year survivor of their cancer. One of these boys, his name is Zach. If you want to cue the video up to show you really what it's all about in terms of Alex's vision and how that enabled so many wonderful, amazing things to happen for other families.
My name is Zach, and all I'm going to be doing when I grow up. He's just a little fireball. Just so much energy, loves life. You know, just your typical boy that loves to have fun. I love to run around and climb trees and play baseball. I have a big swing set, trampoline, a big backyard. Love and zest for life. You know, we call him our high octane boy. When Zach Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation helped fund the research for this new drug, and we could enroll in a trial.
I had hope in the drug because once I took him, I felt immediately better.
We were seeing his body responding. By the third day, he got out of bed, and he ran down the hall to the playground.
I felt really excited. I was like, oh, maybe I will be able to be cancer-free. I was ready to get outside and play. I think it was almost a miracle that I survived. Alex's Lemonade Stand, if they wouldn't have found the drug, I wouldn't be here right now.
For sure, Zach would not be here today without Alex's Lemonade Stand and the help that they give. How can you say thank you to that?
And doing wonderfully, and I got to meet his mom last year, which was quite a emotional moment for both of us. But that's what it's about, and that's why I'm so grateful to Alex for having that vision. I have a couple minutes more, and I want to tell you about one more thing that we do with the funds, but also point out to you that, believe it or not, childhood cancer research is primarily funded through philanthropy, through organizations like Alex's. It's critical, and I think this quote this doctor recently sent us really struck me, coming from someone who's been doing this. This guy's been doing it about 40 years, saying we're literally saving the field of pediatric cancer. And by we, I don't mean myself and my husband, I mean all of us. And there's probably many people in this room who've been involved in Alex's, whether it's the run or donating to a stand, all those cups of lemonade and all the other things we do really add up. We also have developed some family programs. A lot of this grew out of us seeing a need, and from our own personal experience, the Travel for Care program is available to any and all institutions who treat children with cancer, so that if the family has to travel, either driving hours, which in many parts of the country people have to do, they might drive 6 or 7 hours to the closest children's hospital, or if they have to fly across the country for a specific treatment that's not available, we actually have a staff person, and we work with a travel agency. They contact us, we set it up for them, they don't even have to think about it. Where do you need to be, when do you need to be there, we'll get you there. And that program is growing exponentially because of the needs. We provide free journals for families to keep track of everything. And we also have a program that supports siblings of children with cancer, who the research is showing us have a lot of short and long-term psychosocial side effects from having a sibling with cancer. So we're exploring that area more, but we are in touch with them, and we provide little inspirational messages and coping tools for them. So in my last 2 moments, I want to, Mrs. Lilly, actually her mom works for us, and she is fabulous, always dressed to the nines, this girl is, but she's also 8 years cancer-free from a brain tumor. Another awesome lady. I want to take one more minute to share with you 2 short stories about Alex that I think changed my life in different ways as a person, and as now going into losing a child and then running the organization. They were really gifts to me, and I like to share them because I think it's kind of advice that can help anyone. So at one point in her life, as I mentioned, Alex had learned how to walk, but she was, she couldn't run, she kind of had her own gait, and my husband he's so competitive. He was always saying, if you had crutches, you could go faster. We had seen one of the nurses who was a childhood cancer survivor who gets around with crutches, and she is literally the fastest nurse on the floor. She was always there. And he said, did you see Lisa? Isn't she amazing? And Alex said, yeah, and she said, if you had crutches, you could be as fast as her. And she said, why would I want crutches? He said, because you could be the fastest kid on the playground. And she said, haven't you ever heard the story of the tortoise and the hare? And as he was thinking about it, she said, slow and steady wins the race. And it was cute and funny, but I was so proud of her. that told me that even at 7 years old at this point, she believed in who she was. And it was okay if she wasn't the fastest. And if you think about it, like, we can't all be the fastest or the prettiest or the smartest, but we can know who we are and we can use our strengths to do amazing things in the world, to build businesses, to help other people by just being the person we are. And I felt like I needed to hear that because I was always somebody, and one of 9, so you're always like trying to, you know, have a little bit of competitive side to you. And I thought, you know what, I'm okay the way I am. I just need to learn to be my best person, right? Be the best person I am. And then the second one is so impactful that I can't leave without sharing it with you, because it speaks a lot to life and how to live your life, even with challenges. So Alex was extremely sick in the last 4 months of her life, just getting worse and worse. And she did not want us over in the hospital. So we would take her to the hospital during the day, and then we'd get her home, and she had a real platelet problem because it was in her bone marrow, so she just couldn't hold platelets. And so that would mean like a normal nosebleed would be, you know, potentially life-threatening. And she was to the point where she was getting them often. So this was like the 3rd night in a week where she went to get into bed, her nose started bleeding, we tried everything they had given us to try it, and we finally had to take her to the hospital. And this was just heartbreaking because she was so sick and so uncomfortable. So my husband put her in the car and he turned around to her, and she was sick to her stomach and heading for an all-nighter in the emergency room. And he said, "Alex, I am so sorry." Because that's how we felt. And she said, "For what?" He said, "For everything." There was just nothing more we could say to her. And she looked at him and said, "If there's one thing you should know about me, it's that I'm happy for what I have, not unhappy for what I don't have." And at that moment, to say that, when she had every right to scream and carry on, was amazingly powerful. And in fact, he called me when he got to the hospital, which you would not normally do because that would mean there was something wrong. He said, "I have to tell you what Alex just said." And at the moment, I was amazed, and I realized then that she was okay, and that she had such strength that she would get through this. But it wasn't until much later that I realized that was a gift to all of us. And it was a gift to me that allowed me to not stay in bed all day and to get up and say, you know what, I've got 3 beautiful children, I've got this amazing legacy, I've got wonderful people in my life, and I see the generosity of people every single day. And that's something I should be happy about. So, sorry I didn't bring tissues. But I am so honored and pleased, and I really encourage you to get involved with our organization. We make it fun, we make it easy. Everybody loves it, especially kids. I'm going to be at the Expo, right? Yes, so come on up and see me if you just want to get more information or anything. Thank you.